You're just making fun of me, come on.
No.
At least say it to my face.
Guys, I'll hand out.
We're not making fun of you, we're just making fun of people that look like you.
We're doing like neon signs.
Okay. Anyways.
Well.
Hello, friends. How you doing? Anyways, okay. So you guys know that we're in a series right now, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Wow, that was a mixed review there. So we are in a series right now called I Wish Somebody Told Me. Basically, these are things in our lives that we kind of had to learn the hard way, the not easy way. And it would have been really great if someone stood in front of me as a junior high and high schooler and told me these things instead of me having to figure them out on my own and fail miserably. It's not fun. So basically, I get to speak to you guys today about that and about different things that I wish I knew that I didn't know until now. To be honest, when Jake asked me to speak, I sat down and I wrote down like a million things that I wish someone would have told me, because believe it or not, there are a lot. There's a lot of things that I wish someone would have graced me with. And so it was really hard for me to kind of narrow it down. So what I did was I just kind of wrote down the things that I've been learning personally that I, as an adult now, have looked back at my life and the things that I've gone through and the things that I have experienced, and I'm like, oh, that was a great lesson I learned that no one told me I would have to go through. And so this is just going to kind of be me sharing parts of my testimony with you and parts of just my story and what I've been through and where I kind of come from. So yeah, I want to preface it with this though. As much as I wish I did, I don't know everything. I know, it's so surprising. It's so surprising. I seem like I do, but I don't. And I'm actually very much still learning. Okay. I'm still learning a lot of these things. The mic just, there's like a little sticker just came off. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. So I'm still learning a lot of these things today, and I learned a lot of them just through the process of healing from hurt and trauma and things like that. So to kind of just begin, I grew up going to I went to a public school for a little bit, and then I moved over to private school. When I was in high school, I went to like a medium-sized private Christian high school, and it was there when I realized and felt like I had to be everything for everyone. I had to get good grades for my parents. I had to be the best in every class for my teachers. I had to win awards for things that I did, like community service or helping other students out. And I felt like if I wasn't doing those things, then I was worthless to other people. That I didn't really have the acceptance of them, and more than that, that they wouldn't love me and I wouldn't be able to keep them in my life if I didn't do those things. So really rarely did I do things that I liked or took classes that I wanted to. In fact, I really didn't even know who I was or what I did like. I just kind of went through every single day feeling like, okay, what does this person need from me today? And what are my parents expecting of me today? What do my teachers want from me this week? And it was this constant struggle of going through each and every day, doing things for everyone else and nothing for me, and honestly, like really nothing for God either. I felt like I was so lost in being the friend, right? That friend that everyone wants to go to, that everyone wants to be around, that everyone wants to have in their circle, in their corner. I was so lost in being that to everyone, but I felt like I was constantly having to do more just to make them like me. Which kind of brings me to my first point. I wish that somebody had told me what other people think about me does not define me, and what God thinks about me does. And I know that sounds like a really simple concept, right? Like, it doesn't matter what other people think about me. We can all say that, but a lot of times it does. A A lot of times we take it into our own hearts and we sit back and we think about it and we ruminate on it. So I actually always viewed God in the way that I viewed everyone else. That I had to earn good standing in his eyes. That I had to do everything right just to be like viewed as right. I had to be this perfect person, and I strove so hard to do that. And in turn, I became the actual worst version of myself. I was not perfect anymore. I strove so hard that I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore, because I simply wasn't accepting what God was, or what God told me I was to him. I wasn't accepting the love that he was trying to give me, the love that he always gave me. And out of that bred this desire to be loved. And then, when I was doing all these things for other people, I was no longer doing that because I loved them, but rather doing those things because I wanted to be loved, which is selfish. It's really selfish. And I didn't know that at the time. And if I would have just recognized that the love I got from God, I didn't have to earn, I not only would have had a greater desire to do things that I loved, but also would have been a friend to everyone out of love instead of searching for their love. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I designed, thank you for the input, everyone. I designed my life to be what everyone else wanted it to be, instead of following the call that I know God had for me. What I didn't realize, which is my second point, is that my life, or your life, reflects who you spend time with. And honestly, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. When I'm spending time with God, my life reflects who he created me to be. I no longer feel the need to be perfect, but rather I operate in a place that is overflow of love. So when I was younger, I spent a lot of time with people who drank a lot, smoked weed a lot, and partied a lot. And they didn't really believe in God, and they did not at all live by the morals or values that even as a young kid I knew I wanted in my own life. But I continued to spend time with them because I felt like, oh, they like me. This is fun. And what I found was not that I got so much love, they were amazing, I was the best version of myself, but rather I became a really lost, sad girl who drank a lot, smoked a lot, and partied a lot, and I compromised my morals and my beliefs. I didn't know who I was anymore, but I did know that who I had become was not who I wanted to be. In one regard, I was going to church, and I was being a leader, and I was leading small groups, and I was putting on what Jake talked about last week, my label, my Christian label. And I was like, it's okay, because I go to church, right? But outside of that, I wasn't spending time with God. I wasn't spending time with people that brought me closer to God, or even that reminded me of my potential, or reminded me of the hope that God had for me. And it caused me to run further from him. I didn't want to live that life, but it actually seemed so much easier than what I knew God was calling me to. Because I didn't feel like I was good enough for that. I felt like I had done all of these things, so why would God call me to this greater position? So I ran away. I was like, nope, right out of that one. And I didn't want to live that life. It seemed a lot easier, and I knew that God, what he was calling me to, but again, like I said, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like I should be there, because I know better than God. So I naturally would make excuses. I would tell myself that going to church every Wednesday and Sunday was enough. That if I still put on this front to everyone else of knowing God, then I'd be okay, right? But it's honestly so much more than that, because having a relationship with Jesus is not exclusive to church. And if I wanted to actually have a relationship with him, I needed to do just that. I needed to follow his plan, right? And that really scared me. So I had to give up this life that I was living to step into the unknown of his plan. Which brings me to my next point, and this is honestly probably my most important point. But it is so much easier when you don't run away from what God has called you to. I ignored God a lot because I felt like I could figure it out on my own. I felt like if I knew I loved God, and other people knew that I loved God because of my church status or how often I talked about him or the way that I worshiped or whatever it was, this label that I wore, then I didn't have to actually follow his call, right? And in turn, what happened was I got myself caught up in a scene that I didn't want to be caught up in. And guys, I experienced a lot of heartbreak in that time and a lot of trauma because of the things that I was choosing for myself. And when I say a lot of heartbreak, I don't just mean like, oh, I lost people and things happen. Like, these are things that affected my life till now, that I'm still working through and I'm still having to process through, and emotions that I felt and things that happened to me that affect my life as an adult and will probably affect me forever because of the things that I was choosing. It was a really vicious cycle. I would choose the wrong path. I would go down that path. I would feel really lost. The more lost I felt, the more I would go down that path. I hid my shame, I hid my guilt, I hid my pain, really from everyone. And so in that moment, I had to choose. Do I want to be a David or do I want to be a Jonah, right? And for me, I looked at those two men and I saw David, and he stood up in front of Goliath, and he had faith from God, right? He just, one sling, gone, down. Because he believed what God said he would do. Was he scared? Probably. Did he feel ill-equipped? Probably. How would you feel? I would feel ill-equipped. And then Jonah ran. And what happened to him? He sat in the belly of a fish, right? Horrible. Awful. So I decided to stand up and change directions. I decided that I had this opportunity to leave that life and to step into the life that God perfectly curated just for me. And that's all it takes. It's standing up despite the fear and following that call, because God gave it to you. And I promise you, he knows what's best. And I don't want to mislead you because it is emotional and tiring and hard and scary. But it is so worth it, and that's kind of my last point, is that in that emotional, hard, and scary time, you have to honor your emotions, but don't let them overtake you. So I'm a really emotional person. I cry about everything. I am happy, I cry. I'm sad, I cry. I'm angry, find me in the back crying, because that's me. And I used to hate my emotions so much. I hated them. And my whole life I subscribed to this idea that I was over dramatic or like overly emotional, and everyone would tell me that. And so one day I just decided I'm going to turn that off. I'm done. I don't want to be emotional anymore. And so I did. And then what would happen as I dissociated and depersonalized all of my emotions and all these things that I was going through, what happened was I would be hit with this wave of emotion that about a week at a time I'd be laying in bed and I would talk to no one and I would be depressed and I'd have this crippling anxiety. And not just like, oh, I'm anxious and I'm worried, like making me vomit and sick, and I couldn't move and I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't drive for weeks at a time. And these things that were just in my head constantly telling me that I wasn't enough, that I was too emotional. And so I needed to put all those things aside and I needed to hide them from everyone. I needed to hold it in and tell nobody about it. I told myself that I just need to give my problems to God and to never think about it again. And I was half right? You do have to give your problems to God, but you also have to process those things. I've always felt like my emotions were too much. I put on this face that I was okay, that I couldn't be emotional, because what I was dealing with was so much bigger than the help anyone could ever offer me. So I did that. And what happened was I was fake. And like I said, I told myself, just give it to God and then forget about it. I never have to think about it again. That was really unhelpful for me, because I did have to think about it again. You know, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Jesus wept. So simple, so small. But I think in that verse, it really just shows us this beautiful example of Jesus' process through his emotions. As he's sitting there knowing what's going to happen next, feeling saddened by the lack of faith in the people around him, he takes a small moment to feel, to honor those emotions. He could have cried and screamed and been like, nope, I'm not doing it, and walked away. But instead, he took a step back, he wept, he listened to his emotions, he gave it to God, and he performed one of the most amazing miracles we see in the Bible. He brought a man to life. Honestly, it brings up so much in me, and I no longer feel the need to let my emotions build up and take over my life. I honor them. I sit down, I feel my emotions, and I allow God to work through them in me. Moving emotions are a good thing, guys. Wallowing in sadness, though, is not what God has intended for you. Like I said, I'm going to wrap it up here so we can do worship, but I don't know everything. But what I do know is that God has a great plan for all of you. And I would go out on a limb to say you probably know that as well. I did, and I ran. And like Jake said last week, God isn't trying to steal your joy, but rather give you his joy. And when he calls us away from things, from friends, from situations, from addictions, whatever it looks like, when he calls you away from that, it's not because he's like, no, you don't get to have any fun. You're being punished here. He does it because he knows the hurt and pain that is a result of those things. Life's not easy. Life's not always fun, unfortunately. But I promise it's worth it. And we have the power to make it easier by following the path that God has already laid out for us. He literally already paved the path, and all you have to do is walk in that direction. Don't be like me, lost for a really long time, hurting for a really long time, and I'm unable to love myself or others adequately or properly. Be like David. Allow God to use you in ways that you might think are impossible. Be like Jesus. Honor those beautiful emotions that he created in you and that you have. Well, let God take care of you. Your life is worth a lot. And whether you think it or not, your call, and I promise your call, it won't be taken away. No matter where you're at in life, your call's not going to be taken away. You have to choose right now to either spend time with God and follow him, or to spend time doing things that add no value to your life. And maybe you're already down that road that I was down. And in that case, you have a choice there too. To stand up, get yourself back on the path that God created for you, or keep walking blindly into further destruction. There's a right choice and there's a wrong choice. Choose the right one.
Such a good word. I love it. Wow. Such a good word. Can we clap our hands again for him? I've said this before, we said it before, I told Haley, a week ago, that she was going to preach today, but honestly, that message didn't take a week to prepare. That message took 26 years. Like, that was her life. Like, she shared the lessons that she's learned. That's great. That's a big deal. So, we're going to worship together, and we're going to have an opportunity to respond. So, in this time of worship, there's a chance for you to lift your hands and adore God, to lift your hands and worship him as the highest. Give him the highest praise, give him the highest honor of your life. There's an opportunity for that. There's also an opportunity for you to respond to the things that God spoke to you through Haley. The ways that God spoke to you through Haley. The things that struck your heart. The ways that you feel like, man, I gotta say yes to God. I have the credit that he's due, and it's also time to respond to what God has invited you into, which is more a relationship with Himself. I'm gonna turn the lights off. We've been doing this thing where we stack the chairs against the wall back there. So I'm gonna ask everybody to stand up, please. Go ahead and stand up and fold your chair up and put it in that corner.